Welcome. This is the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. This is where you'll learn strategies to help you achieve lifetime financial freedom through real estate investment. Your host, Rod Khleif, has owned over 2,000 homes and apartments, and he brings experts in all aspects of real estate investment and management onto the show. Now, here's your host, Rod Khleif.
Welcome to another edition of How to Build Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing. I'm Rod Khleif, and I'm thrilled you're here. You're going to get a big kick out of the dynamic lady that we're interviewing today. Her name is Liberatore, and she is a best-selling author of a couple of very interesting books that relate to what we do here on the show. And the first one is Daily Inspirations to Achieve for Your Real Estate Investment Goals. And the other one is The Keys to Managing Your Real Estate. Now, she's the founder and president of My Landlord Helper, which is kind of a very interesting, unique virtual assistant solution for do-it-yourself real estate investors. And we're very glad to have her on the show. How you doing, Linda?
Oh, I'm good. Thank you so much. You provide such a great service to your audience. I just think it's great that there are people out there willing to give the time like you are to educate people. You know, there's too many gurus on the street, and it's nice to get a solid education from someone like yourself.
Well, that's very kind of you to say that, and I will slip you the 20 after we're done. Thank you. Well, so tell us a little bit about your background, how you got in this business. I know you're very active up in Lake County. Is that Chicagoland?
Just outside of Chicago. We're just
Okay.
outside of the Chicago area. I'm actually very involved.
Right.
I volunteer for a lot of different real estate investment groups, affordable housing, even some incubator in the area. So like yourself, I guess, I love to be able to help people that are just getting started. There's just so many, let's say, late night programs that make everything look like it's just that easy. And there's certainly a lot of money to be, I'll call it, won or lost at that table. And you kind of want to make sure that people understand that. So getting out there and volunteering in kind of those real estate investment groups where you have real, I'll call it real landlords. We often say that we have the real landlords in there that are out there buying the multifamilies, and they understand kind of, we're putting together a panel, for example, on one of our groups for this December, and we're reaching out to some of the oldest members because they've seen the cycles that are out there in real estate. And we think it's really beneficial for our newer members that are just starting to buy properties to kind of understand how they have to hunker down and handle different cycles.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of young guys that I talk to regularly, and women as well, that, I've not been through one of these cycles. And anybody that listens to this podcast knows that I got my rear end handed to me in 2008 and had a big seminar. And yeah, there are a lot of people that are going in not realizing that at some point the music's going to stop, and you don't want to be the last person sitting down in the chair or not have a chair to sit in. So no, that's awesome. So let's talk about your background. How'd you get into the business? And then let's dig into those books.
Okay, it's a little bit of a combination, I'll say. I was doing technology training for a number of years for enterprise size kind of software, a lot of database management, and kind of life takes you on certain paths. And at the same time, I was working with a few real estate investors, helping them with finding technology solutions. And this is back in the day where it would have been a lot more difficult, if you would, to find those, CD-ROMs I'm talking,
Right.
And so not everybody can relate to that, but that was a common way to install software. And so about the same time as I was doing this training and helping these people, I had this opportunity to go out to a company that was based out of New York, and they helped people. They had a web-based application that helped private schools collect tuition. So kind of that, I'll call it that, light bulb moment. Yeah, right. Exactly. And I just thought to myself, wow, that would be really helpful for landlords to be able to electronically get the rent and get rent on time and get those, pre and post reminders, and something that today, I guess I'll say we all take for granted. But even back then, I'd say what was especially difficult, and I'm sure you could attest to this, is people were hesitant to give that out. And I never, because I even had banking experience prior to that. So I never kind of understood why they were hesitant, because what you're asking for on an ACH form is no different than if I hand you my personal check. But
Right.
people were still, right? And
Hmm.
where now you send them anything via DocuSign and it's like boom, 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 and you get it
Right.
right back. So we're a different society than we even were, 8, 9 years ago.
Sure.
But you just saw the advantage to offering small landlords that are just starting, similar to your audience, where they're trying to build that portfolio, so they're looking for options and platforms to get them there. And it's just been a really wonderful, because you're really shaping, I'll call it, I'll say, lives by volunteering through all these different things. You're really seeing the things people share.
No, that's no question. Well, so talk to us about your daily inspirations for real estate investors. Let's go through some of those, if you don't mind.
Oh, sure. Well, I don't have them in front of me, so
Okay.
we won't. But I can kind of give you the little bit of background. So at that point, when I decided to write that, it was probably, I don't know, I guess I'll say we had the business open maybe like 5 years, and you and I were chatting. I'm first of all probably a big morning person anyway, and then a routine person. I
Hmm.
definitely learned by having routine. So I had, I'll call it, my morning routine going. And it was, again, kind of that light bulb moment, like, wouldn't it be helpful for a small landlord to take, let's say, a moment each day, just the way you have, let's say, your moment of gratitude, and to read something. And it's literally, if you look at the page, it's probably a paragraph. I'll say it's a passage, is the way that I'd word it,
Hmm.
per day, about something to think about with real estate investing. So maybe it's about what to look for when you're screening a tenant. Maybe the next page is what to get into if you're in multifamily building, how are you handling communications? How are you getting out of blast if there's weather issues related to, I don't know, public transportation that day? So each day has a little something to think about as it relates to investing. So it just kind of helps the brain, I'll say, start the day with a little thought about investing in real estate.
Okay. Okay. So that's the real estate investment goals.
And it
And
does
that,
have a quote. I should mention that too. And always a quote. I always like to start with a quote each day too.
okay. So it's like, what is it? Like a 30-day, or
Oh,
how
I'm,
many?
I'm laughing. That's one of my jokes. You must have heard that joke before.
No.
No, it's actually 365 days, and it
Wow.
should be 30 days, because I wasn't thinking clearly when I took on this project. It was like after I got
Wow.
done, I thought, why didn't I do 30 days?
Oh, that's all. Wow, 365. Holy cow. And you've got a quote every day and you've got a little inspirational piece about real estate. Well, I'm
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see that. I
Oh,
love it. And
oh,
I love where your mind's at with that. So I know we talked briefly before we started recording about your morning ritual. And so this is basically a piece of that. Like Hal Elrod, The Miracle Morning, that's a book we give to my coaching clients. And it's all about getting up early, as early as you can, and
yeah, yeah.
exercise. Or no, actually, first you reflect, and then you visualize, do maybe look at your vision board, visualize a little bit, visualize your goals as if you already have them, be grateful for what you already have in your life, and then journaling, do a little bit of
Journal, a little
journaling,
bit of
right?
journal every day. Yeah,
Right. And then read one of Linda's fantastic quotes
yeah,
in her daily
exactly.
inspiration book, and then put on the sneakers and go out and sweat.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really, honestly, Rod, I can't tell you, I'm so committed to that. Like, I think that changes people's life to start out your day the right way, in that positive way. There's so many
Yeah.
things that are going to hit you as it is. If you could at least, to me, it's like kind of eating breakfast, right? You just got to start out with a foundation.
No question. Guys, those of you listening, I highly recommend Hal's book, The Miracle Morning, or doing
Yep.
something like that. We've talked about morning rituals on this show before. Mine used to be, I'm actually doing more like Hal's now. Mine used to be, I just do what I just said. I meditate literally for 5 minutes, gratitude first, and then for what I already have, and then gratitude for what I want, and then just a declaration that it's going to be a great day. But now I've really gotten up earlier and I'm exercising in the morning. I used to just do it in the afternoon, and it has really made a big difference. Those of you that aren't doing that, if you really want to success, and I know you do if you're listening to this show, you've got to have the energy to achieve that success. And you're going to get that energy from eating well, and from the exercise in the morning, and from starting your day off right.
If I could add to that, Rod, I think one of the most inspirational things is if they can, I'll say, afford a gym. One of the things that I found really most amazing is when you're at home and you're going through these routines, you kind of feel like you're taking on the world. When you go to a gym and you get there at 4 a.m. and that parking lot is full and you're trying to find a spot, it's a light bulb moment to say, hey, there's a lot of people living this lifestyle. And I think it just brings you back so much energy, So
Well, I can't do 4 o'clock, but
I know, well,
there's a limit to this enthusiasm, and and I'm sorry to throw a bucket of cold water on that, but
no, no.
I will never see 4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, well, you could adjust it. It could be
All right,
5:30, it could be 6. We'll
all
let you,
right,
but you can't sleep until 7 for
uh,
sure. You can't.
all right. If you say so. All right,
Okay.
all right. Let's talk about the keys to managing your real estate. Tell us about that book.
Well, that book is really, I'll call it kind of more the nuts and bolts of what somebody has to do to manage those multifamilies. Let's say in
Okay.
your particular case, they're out there, they're getting ready to sign an agreement on a multifamily. Just what is it you're going to need to know? Where am I going to find a lease? Where do you suggest? Like, so it goes through things like building the team, the real estate investment groups you can get involved in, how to, let's say, vet out a contractor, and of course part of it being collecting the payments.
Right.
Sometimes that's a difficult, everybody has, let's call it, a different personality, and so some people are more or less comfortable with that, and they need to realize that in the game of real estate, or any time you open a business, that's part of it. I could be passionate about selling socks, but if you aren't going to collect the money for those, so with rents, I think it's super important that they understand that the game could be won or lost at that table. So we were talking a little bit about certain areas you'll want invoices, certain areas you need ACH, other areas Chase Quick Pay,
Yeah,
with
so what she's
roommates.
talking about, guys, is in your rent collection, one of the strategies, particularly if you're in the C minus, C to D areas, C to D per class properties, invoicing your tenants on a monthly basis can be very, very effective in improving your collections. Now, we used to do it when I had that class of properties, which I do not recommend D properties anymore, but that's another conversation. But invoicing is very, very helpful. And then ACH, where do you see the ACH being the most useful? For
Uh,
everybody else, or?
I would say it's becoming kind of mainstream.
Right,
As I said, it was kind of difficult, I'll say, years ago. Now people just want the convenience. And
right,
even in those C-class properties, it's really more if they have a checking account. So
right,
there's certain areas, certain communities that don't necessarily believe in banking. Well, then you're going to be a money order and in the mail. But
right,
if they're in banking, they probably, if they get, I'll call it, hit with a late fee just once, or slapped with a late fee, then they say, what is it that you offer that I could just call and get that taken out of my account? It
right.
becomes that convenience people are looking for, and
Sure,
they could
sure.
set that up through their bank. Or Rod, any bank offers that. You just ask for their treasury management. I shouldn't say any bank, most banks. How's that?
I can't
The
imagine any banks
majority.
today that don't do it any, and
Yeah.
now you guys realize what ACH is, I'm sure. It's basically automatic withdrawals out of your checking account. Really, to be successful in the landlording, particularly again in the C and under properties, believe it or not, we even take debit cards and credit cards in my property management company, which there's a cost associated with, but it really enhances our collection. So,
Yeah. It's
uh,
better than the cost of your staff having to chase it down and go to
right.
the legal notices, et cetera. It's a cost of doing business that certainly compensates for itself. And I don't know if you're familiar with that Pay Near Me. I have landlords that love that.
No,
They
what is it? Could you expand on
it's
that? I don't know what that is.
Okay, it's called Pay Near Me, and it's a
Okay.
company that has affiliated and associated with like Dollar Tree, and again, it's different parts of the country, different, sorry, I said Dollar Tree, like a hardware, and even like 7-Elevens. And
Okay.
what it does is allow that certain, again, a little bit of tougher demographics that don't have bank accounts, They just bring the cash into those places, and you've paid them, you've set up an account, and they could bring it to any of those locations. All they have to do is give it that account number, and it gets deposited to your account.
Oh,
So it's a nice convenience.
sure. It's
Um,
almost like wiring the money, but
yeah,
it's convenient because there are merchants that are involved with it. Okay, very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah. It's a nice offering for certain areas. It's very helpful.
So, what else besides collections
I
do
would
you speak about in that keys to managing your real estate book?
Yeah, we talk a little bit about the legal notices that go with it. That's
Okay.
another, I'll call it kind of frightening area for the new landlord, that they want to realize that they at least want to develop a sense of comfort for so that it doesn't, I'll call it, blindside them. So you don't want, I'll call it, your tenant
Hmm.
knowing more than you do about the legal process.
And
So
believe me, there are some very professional tenants out there that know how to work the system.
yeah,
I mean, and they're scary efficient at doing it as well.
exactly.
So for you newbies, be forewarned. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
and what we say, Rod, in those cases is, there's little things that people don't realize. Like, for instance, if your lease has, I'll call it a 5-day grace period,
Right.
and then you're
As
going to,
most do,
most do. Well, we
Yeah.
see that vary, some
Yeah.
areas of the country more or less, but the thing is, the legal notice and again, I'm going to use the generality, most parts of the country, because there's always exceptions with municipalities and counties, you can deliver that notice on the second day of the month. Now,
Mm.
from an efficiency standpoint, if I'm looking at a large building, I'm not looking to spend the money on getting those out right away if truly the majority of the building's going to pay on the 5th.
Yeah. Talking about
But
late pay notices.
right,
Right, because
exactly.
rent is due on the first, late on the second, and then typically a late charge gets assessed. What, the
The
fifth,
sixth day,
sixth? Yeah,
yeah,
sixth. Right.
depending.
So
It varies. But if you have like a problem tenant, and this is something a lot of people have thanked us for sharing this, is let's say you've kind of known things have been going bad, but you're getting the money but it's still going bad.
it's a
You
constant struggle.
Right. So in a case like that, what we say is the new landlord especially should feel very comfortable, first off, having that list of charitable organizations as part of their lease packet when they moved in. So that's like a non-issue, because we talk about it while we're friendly, right? When you first start dating, everything's good. So
Right.
you bring all this up and you say, we've got this little packet in the event of emergency, right? Crack the glass. So here's the list of people
No, it's a
that you
good
can
idea.
go
That's a
to.
great idea. In your intro lease signing, you hand them a list of people they can go to if they have a problem. There are churches and other relief organizations that, we get checks from all the time when people are having a tough time. What a great idea. I love it.
Yeah, and bringing it up in that nice
Mm-hmm.
banter.
Sure.
So now when I have somebody that really has been a problem, now we may have to, let's say, nip it in the bud, because let's say in our area, the country in Chicago, we don't want these things to surface in December, right?
Right.
If it's going to surface, we're looking for it to surface no later than probably August is probably the best. We don't want to have a flip anytime after that, or a turnover, I mean.
Right.
So anyway, long story short, I would pull that document out on the second day. I'd get your handyman, put your list of charitable organizations with the legal document, and you're delivering it now more as a gift,
Right.
and you're not trying to be punitive. You're saying, hey, you need help, and if you are truly in the bad shape you're saying you are, then why don't you take this legal notice, get over to that organization, and jump on it? Because
I love it.
otherwise the landlord loses, as you know, 1 month, 2 months worth of rent, while
Turnover is the highest expense that you have when you're renting properties. And I will tell you, what I like about what you just said is it takes some of the sting out of an eviction notice or a late pay notice by offering something with it. That's a very good strategy, given the list of potential relief organizations with the late pay notice. I want to interject one other thing that's also very, very helpful, guys. When you're first doing a lease up, it is very, very important not just to put the lease in front of them and have them sign it. It's very, very important to actually really verbally talk about, and exchange back and forth what you're requiring of them and what they can require of you. I mean, what they can expect. I'm sorry, what you're expecting of them and what they can expect of you. For example, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, you can expect that if you have an issue with the plumbing or electrical or maintenance item, we're going to get right on it, and we're going to call you afterwards to make sure you're happy with what we did. But also, we have bills to pay, and if you're late, unfortunately, on the 2nd, you're going to get a late notice. And on the 6th, we're going to start an eviction. And that's just, I don't want there to be any surprises. We'd love to have you stay, but I just want you to know that's how we operate. Guys, having that conversation is so critical when you're leasing up a property, because don't be afraid of that conversation. In fact, take that opportunity to spend 15 minutes talking about that with them. And it really helps. They're going to think twice before they go buy a TV and not pay their rent, or buy Christmas presents and not pay their rent, because the landlord told them what was going to happen if they didn't pay. And then it's no surprise. So,
Rod, I couldn't agree more. What an awesome service just to explain that to them.
Right.
That is the time to do it. Do it don't just give them the lease without a conversation.
Don't rush through it. Don't rush through it. That's an
Absolutely.
opportunity to minimize turnover. It's an opportunity to minimize collection issues. It's an opportunity to tell them how to contact you and what to expect, and really what you think might be a frivolous repair. Don't bother us if the knob is off the bottom of the blind cord or something ridiculous. But it's really important to communicate that verbally. That's, I guess, if I impart anything on you guys, use that opportunity to verbally tell them this.
And Rod, in certain areas, I'll call it kind of the different metropolitan areas, let's put it that way, not areas of the country, different demographics. So much gets signed nowadays via DocuSign that what we're suggesting in those particular areas is take the time, just like we are right now, whether it be Zoom, whether it be a YouTube video, record something, so that in addition to that electronic signing, they got to see you in person, just like you're sitting here with me today. And
Right.
maybe you're conversing just as a lecture style, or maybe you're conversing with somebody in the office, but you record that and ask them to view that as well. And keep it brief, but hit those key points. If they,
I see. I see. So actually record something that they watch, and it's not really interaction with them. It's just, it's a audio visual way to communicate versus just communicating in writing.
Exactly. It would be your last choice. Like you said, ideally, number one would be your idea. I want to get them in. I want to spend 15 minutes.
Right.
If in the different, again, we have people on, I'm sure your area of the country too, in some parts of the city of Chicago, they're moving out on the 31st at 11 o'clock and the next guy's coming in at 1 a.m.
Yeah, right.
Just depends how metropolitan it is and what's going on.
Sure. And they're millennials, so they're used to doing everything on their PDA. And by the way, guys, we're recording this on Zoom to put on YouTube. So if you're listening to it on the podcast, that's why we're actually looking at each other right now. But you and those of you listening, you can always go to my YouTube channel if that's a way, if you actually want to watch and look at my ugly mug, then you have that ability. So great idea. I love recording it as well, and sending them a little video, it can be literally with your webcam.
Right.
And just say, I just want to explain a few things in the lease to you. And it can be generic, so you could just do it one time. Now, ideally, I would recommend you do it one-on-one with them, either on the phone or in person if you can, because it's just more powerful. They hear your sincerity, and you tell them, listen, I've got bills to pay like anybody else, and if I don't collect the rent, I can't pay my mortgage. So you have to understand that this is going to happen on the 6th of the month, and it's no hard feelings. It's just, and that way they're not going to try to test you either. Okay. They're not going to try to push you and give you a sob story or whatever. You're going to say, you can remind them, remember when we talked about this, I have a mortgage payment to make, and it's very, very helpful. Guys, I know this may sound like overkill or whatever, but trust me, it's not. It should be something you do every single time. It really is that important.
Absolutely agreed, Rod. Absolutely.
Okay.
In fact, I just talked to somebody the other day, like 30 years in the business, and that's what he said. If I could talk to my younger self, like you kind of discount this and think, oh, well, I know how to collect money, until you're one-on-one in that awkward situation and you wish you could refer back to that conversation that you
Right.
didn't have with them,
Right. Again, I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but that will forestall a lot of those conversations because they're not going to forget. If you put
Yeah.
some emphasis on it and you do it in a nice way, but say, unfortunately, when this happens, it's painful and people try to talk to us, but you need to understand that we've got bills. And anyway, I'm beating a dead
Yeah.
horse. All
Yeah,
right.
we
So
got
what?
it.
So what else is in the book? What else do you chat
Well,
about?
I'd say another area I think a new landlord could watch for as a potential, I would say protect themselves with adding things in some type of handbook regulations. So too often they get like, I'll call it a kind of a generic lease, which is
Hmm.
fine because
Hmm.
everybody's kind of afraid, right? It's a legal instrument.
Sure.
And so they kind of get, so one of the things we see becoming so common and so helpful is, and I guess it's from years of experience and those bad moments that you don't
Right.
forget, is they kind of put together this list of either they call it their addendum, their house rules, their policy, their procedures. And in the past, quite often it would just be, I'll say, a list of utilities and the dry cleaner and stuff like that.
Sure.
But now,
Resources maybe and things of that
yes,
nature. Okay.
now we're seeing more and more people adding, I'll call it coverage, if you will, kind of the way our insurance has changed, right? So you're seeing like one of the common ones we see is the move outs we were just talking about.
Mhm.
I think you said it so importantly, like there's money to be lost there. You can't lose that. So why do we?
Turnovers. Yeah.
Yeah.
Turnover is the most expensive, biggest expense you can have as a landlord. Okay.
So it, and even more so if you let that time elapse with a vacancy, right?
Oh, yeah.
So in these metropolitan areas that my sharp landlords, they've got it down. It's happening at midnight and next morning is the next move in.
Hmm.
So in order to really facilitate that, you have to make sure you've covered yourself in the lease, either the handbook, in the lease itself. So the lease itself, you may say move out time no later than 5 p.m. on the 31st.
Right.
And again, check with your local laws. Generally, though, that is allowed to add a time to it. And then when it comes to the regulations, I'd say another one we see too many times when they didn't protect themselves is the showings. So in order for me to lease it, I've got to be able to get in and show that unit.
Sure.
Now,
While it's still occupied by your previous tenant. Right.
yes, and in a multifamily, you can add incentives in there. You could say, we'll have this $100 gift card if we were able to successfully rent out your unit within X amount of
Oh, I
days or
like it.
whatever.
I like it. I
Yeah,
like it.
they,
So you
we've
have an incentive right there in the lease, or you put it in that handbook you're describing. And so they have a spiff if they help you rent it. They keep it clean and showing well. And no, I like that. I've not heard that one
exactly.
before. That's very clever.
Oh,
Okay.
we see some that, we just went through one where a man was particularly difficult. He said, oh, there was death in the family, this, that, and he gave like 10 reasons. And this, what it was listed with a real estate agent, it was very difficult for them to get in there and show it.
Right.
And so sometimes they have punitive. Now, some people, kind of the carrot or the stick,
Right.
but you have something to cover yourself if you need to show those units. Multifamily, sometimes you have flexibility because you have other people. But if you don't have like one good tenant that like is your go-to backup, it becomes very difficult when that tenant is not allowing you the
Right. If you
flexibility.
don't have that tenant allow you to show their unit that's comparable to the unit they're interested in, yeah, absolutely. I love the incentive idea. And guys, don't be afraid to be punitive either. In fact, I should probably do a session on my lease. I wrote a lease that was, I
Good.
mean, it was onerous. It was so tight. And if for example, if they weren't there for a showing, they got charged. If I need to pull it out, there was so much stuff in there that held them accountable. It might have been a little too much even, but the point is you can do it with a carrot or the stick. And I love the suggestion of the carrot. I mean, that's absolutely a great solution.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
love to go back to what you just said, though, Robin. I think this is so true. We see them coming in from, again, different areas of the country.
Mhm.
But what is it? It's not so much the areas of the country, it's what experience that they've been through. So Rod's got a bigger and bigger list of issues because I'm sure this happened and you said, okay, that's not going to happen to me again. So I'm going to add that to the lease. And that's
Yeah.
not going to happen to me again. So I'm going to add that to the lease.
No question. There's so many little things that you don't think about. And I really am going to pull that lease out and
Yeah, I bet
share it with my
that's.
audience. There's a lot of good stuff in there. But I'll tell you, it makes sense to spend the time and think through ways that you can incentivize people to do the things that you want done. And I love your idea of the gift card. And sometimes, you'll get a tough tenant and you pay him to leave. I mean,
Yes.
you to
Yes.
get them out. And no, I like it. Okay. So
It's
what else do you talk about?
I think the next I think I would say is that networking. I kind of brushed over it at the beginning, but
Okay.
you're a guy like myself that you get out there, right? And you meet people and you learn from people. And I think too many times someone getting started with a multifamily, they say, well, I've got my team. I've got my real estate agent and my banker, my accountant. And they don't realize that I'll call it there's so much more. So by
Sure.
getting into the right real estate investment group, not, just what I watch the fix and flip show on TV,
Oh no,
it's
God, no.
different than
Yeah.
getting out into the groups, hearing the real stories. Like you'd be surprised. Like at some of ours, we have the sheriff's department out there.
Oh, I love it.
Well, does it help to know somebody in the sheriff's department when you're not face to face with them arguing over a tenant? So you build like strong relationships we have the real estate taxes, which as we all know goes up, 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 no matter
Yeah.
what area, right? So they come in and they teach people how to, what's the word for that? Appeal
Appeal
their real
their
estate
assessment. Yeah.
taxes.
Hmm.
And in multifamily, that's huge. You want to stay right on top of that big
It's
money to
one of
you
it's the
cost.
second biggest expense, frankly.
Yeah.
So no, that's awesome that you bring people in like that. And
Yeah, those are valuable resources for them. And we don't care if they use that person. The point is get that education, get your wheels thinking about, those
yeah,
are more
no,
relationships.
guys, those of you considering buying a property, part of your due diligence. Now, and some of you may be in areas that you don't have groups that are as well organized as you've got there in Lake County in Chicago. But if you're going to buy a property, you better have gone and talked to the police department. You want to find out
Yes.
what's going on in that block, what's going on with that property. You're going to want to go and talk to the assessor's office, find out what's going to happen with the taxes after you buy. I recommend you go talk to the building department, find out if there have been any historical violations, and talk to planning. Is there a sewer line going in that you're going to have to pay for? There's a lot of things like this that you absolutely want to do when you're in the due diligence process, even on a fourplex or a duplex or something. I know this may sound like overkill, but you really want to find out what's going on. You can learn a lot by going to the county and talking to these different offices, talk to zoning, see if there's a zoning change coming that might positively or negatively impact your property. That's a good way to spend an afternoon if you're going to take down a property. But I love what you're doing inside of your networking. So let's talk about networking some more. So for those of my listeners that maybe haven't gone to a real estate investor club meeting, what would you suggest? I mean, are there some suggestions you have?
Well, first off, there's, I'm all about the technology, right? And I would
Right,
say what I've seen change so much is this meetup.
right,
So meetup really is just the tool to find it, whether I'm
right,
going to be crocheting or investing or reading books. So
right.
you just get out there, find what's in your area. By all means, are you going to find ones that are just about selling you the next thing? Yes. But you have to be smart enough
Yes,
to
and
go
let
through
me
those.
stop you there for 1 second. You are going to hit RIA groups where they bring in speakers, gurus, quote unquote, and
Yeah.
I say that tongue in cheek. And I will tell you, they are geared to sell you, and those RIAs actually split whatever they sell at those events. So just be careful. Put your
Right.
hand on your wallet and be careful if you're going to one of those large RIAs where they bring speakers like that in. And they're great salespeople, so just be careful.
Yeah,
But
look for the
but
authentic speakers.
right.
One of the things I would suggest, like what I do, is I go through the websites to look at the past speakers. Like
Good
we've a
idea.
group that's been around 25 years. We have probably 20 years worth of speakers out there. So there's like, I'll call it nothing to hide. They're all valuable educational resources. So
Mm,
you'll get a flavor for the group by looking through who they've had. If
mm,
you see it's like you're saying, time after time, it's just another sales and it's another
mm,
package, then maybe, I mean, I'm not saying that's not the group. There could be really good groups like that. But
mm.
if you're looking to make community ties, that's not the one that's going to help you with that. So
Right.
you're looking for groups that are focused on the community. If you don't have one, I would strongly suggest you start
Start one.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
start your own. Absolutely.
And
What a
because,
great way to have authority and instant authority
um,
and I mean, build a reputation as a resource
yeah.
for your community.
And
And that's another thing. You're going to find, guys, that there are a lot of single family groups there aren't a lot of multifamily groups. So those of you that are listening, it's an opportunity. You can start your own. And I don't care if it's 5 or 10 people, it's worth doing.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely, Rod. I'm in another group in Chicago called the Rogers Park Group, and they're all multifamily. They're right along the lake. I don't know if you know the Chicago area, but right along Loyola College, DePaul College, those are over there.
nice.
And they've been around some 20 something years. Same thing. They're pillars in the community. They support the activities. And they recently did something over the last, like I'll say 3 years, where they got involved with the local high school. And as you know, there's different areas and demographics in Chicago, and some are more troubling, let's say, than others.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this school was losing funding. And what they did, I mean, just it really chokes you up. But it was a school that what they did was the builders got, or the owners, these real estate investors got together and put in what they refer to as a low incidence room. But in other words, it's a room with all home appliances, and they had to set it up like a house for special needs children in the school. Well, who better to do that than the landlords that are always remodeling homes? So they have this like real bond with the community. And
Very
many
cool.
times multifamily landlords are looked down on, let's say,
Oh,
right?
sure. Oh, sure. No, they make the paper because,
Right. They're
they,
terrible guys,
yeah.
or
No,
girls,
oh,
ladies.
yeah. No, I mean, I absolutely know all about that. And it happens regularly. And, it's the evil landlord that's, the Scrooge landlord. And, the press loves that stuff. So they eat it up. You really
Right.
don't get an opportunity to defend yourself. And so you want to be very, very careful. If you can proactively do things in the community like you just described, that's fantastic.
Oh my
And
gosh,
that
they have
really
the
sets you
support.
apart. And,
Yep.
and guys, if you go and talk to the police department, I mean, that's just such a huge thing because they know that you care. So when they have, and the building department, so when you have a tenant that uses a quote unquote issue with the unit to make your life hell, which is very not uncommon, guys, they'll bring in the
Right.
health department or the building department. If you've already established a relationship with these people and they know you care, it makes a huge difference. And that way, that'll prevent a tenant from utilizing one of these government agencies to make your life hell. Okay, so very, very important that you proactively set up those relationships.
Absolutely right. I meant to jump on that before when you said that about the police. The police officers, as you said, the building departments, those are all your, I'll call it circle of friends, or should be.
Right.
So if you start this small meetup group, and it's, I'll say, as you described, 3 to 5 members to get it off the ground, three common, you have definitely set your reputation. We had one, I forget the exact incident, but the tenant said, well, I'm going to call the alderman, which in the Chicago area, that would be your political position
Mm-hmm.
for a specific neighborhood. And
Sure.
I said, you go right ahead, because I have a
Here,
relationship with that
here's his
alderman.
number. Do you want
Yeah.
his cell phone?
Right, because you know what? We had established ourselves as having integrity,
Sure.
as doing the right thing by the landlords. Now, that doesn't mean you win or they're going to give you favoritism. They're going to evaluate the situation, but you go in with some political capital. You go in where, you can't blame them. They want to just do what's right, but at least they go in knowing Rod's a man of integrity. He's always acted with integrity. Yes,
Right.
I'll judge this situation, but at least I know a little bit about Rod.
No, it just helps to try to level the playing field because it really isn't a level playing field when you're dealing landlord tenant. I mean, it's
All
always the evil landlord. It's never the evil tenant when regularly it should be the evil tenant. So,
right.
just know that, guys. You want to do everything you can to level the playing field. What else? Anything else in the book that you can touch on?
Oh, we
I'm
talked
kind of holding
about.
your feet to the fire here. I'm just
Yeah, you are. You
it's
didn't.
been such a pleasure. I
You
just
got to give me a
you're
copy of the book then. I
yeah.
need the cheat sheet. I need to know. I would say, I think the other thing is, let's talk a little bit about the marketing. I
Okay.
think that, as you and I again know, we're no longer just MLS and newspaper. It's
No.
all about the social media campaigns. It's all about building a reputation.
Right.
So I think that along the lines of what we're talking about, getting out there and meeting, let's say, the dry cleaner, and putting all your pens at the dry cleaner and letting them know when you have a vacancy, if you're by the hospitals, if you're by schools, and nobody wants
Guerrilla
to,
marketing. You're talking about guerrilla marketing
yeah,
now,
yeah.
flyers and tear-offs and things of that nature. Yeah, okay.
Yep. And then with your social medias, a lot of those places will be willing, let's say your local restaurant, they're just opening. They're more than willing to give you some kind of coupon, you help them by putting that out there on Facebook, on YouTube, as you said, whatever your channels are, Twitter, get that information out there. And you're helping them, you're building a sense of community. It really helps establish you in that area.
Sure. Now, I'll tell you, if you guys do a larger property, it's very helpful to go around to the local businesses, ask them for coupons or flyers, and create a welcome package for your residents. And obviously, you can ask for things in return, like maybe a tear-off sheet for vacancies or whatever it is, whatever sort of a tit-for-tat kind of a thing you can do. But, anything you can do like that in your community, I mean, it really makes a huge difference if you've got a high vacancy or you've got a lot of turnover for some reason, or you're buying a property that's been poorly managed, it's got a lot of vacancy and you need to ramp it quickly. Those guerrilla efforts can be hugely powerful. So
Absolutely, Rod. I would piggyback that too to say that, that's where, I'll call it the new investor with the multifamily, look to the big guys. Emulate what you see, let's say these
right.
national
Sure, virtual tour.
multifamily.
Take a camera and do a virtual or a video and do a virtual tour of your property, or
Right.
maybe draw out a floor plan and put a floor plan online. Do these things that these other people are doing.
And people like the authentic, Rod. So you don't have to go in and get the camera crew. Just take the cell phone, as you said, walk through that unit. And we even see investors that do it with while it's in construction. And again, I can't think of the name of those TV shows, but all those shows that are so popular, right? They like to see it in construction. Don't feel like you just need. Yeah, like show it during, okay, new cabinets are going in, or we're ripping out this carpet, or whatever it is. You're gaining a little bit of hype, if you will, and a few followers because you're putting these pictures out there or videos as it's going along, and you'd be surprised how I don't want to say it goes viral. I mean,
no, but you get interaction and you get views, and it's just one more way to. I mean, if you lease one unit from it, it's worth every bit of it. So,
absolutely.
And you want multiple venues or platforms to guerrilla market on. And so certainly showing pictures. I mean, I've seen that on Facebook. I've got friends that are doing remodels and things, and they post the pictures. They post the before and after pictures. Very proud of them.
Yeah, they love that.
Yeah.
Are you, I don't know if you're a fan, we didn't get to talk about this. Are you a fan of Grant Cardone?
Oh, of course.
You've heard of that guy,
He's been
right?
on the show. He's fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
he is he? Oh, I didn't know that, Rod.
sure.
I love him. Yeah, I
Yeah.
did a boot camp with him this year.
Did you go to Miami for that? Yeah, he's a hoot.
He is a hoot, and I followed him for a few years. He gives me definitely a ton of energy.
Yeah, I mean, if I was at home, I could show you my Comfort Kills sign that's right in my home office. And
how about it?
Yeah,
It's a philosophy. Awesome. It is, but I bring that up because I think it's relevant, because when he brings up that piece about social media, and maybe because I'm a little older, which I don't like to own all the time, but the reality is, like, anybody that doesn't recognize you have all these tools for free, that if you're not taking advantage of that, then don't tell me why your unit's vacant.
Thank you. Thank you. There's so many opportunities. I mean, it really is unbelievable. I go Facebook Live and I have 3,000 views, and I'm not that interesting, but I'm getting reach. It's awesome.
Right. No, I so agree. And the thing is, we're almost spoiled. When you say that comfort kills, I do have a bit of concern, as we said, for people that haven't been through different cycles, that right now rents are high, vacancies are low. Like, don't rest on your laurels. Have some plans out there. Be building that momentum.
Right. Really, and be buying, realizing that it's going to pull back. But back to social media for a second. I'm really glad you brought that up. I just created a Facebook group for multifamily investors. Guys, if you're not on there and you're interested in listening to this, you're making a mistake. Go to multifamilycommunity.com, and there's a direct link to this Facebook group. There's already over 600 people in there, and it's been up for a week.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. And
That's
so,
great, Rod. I'm
yeah.
going
And
to join. I'm
please
going to
do.
join. Yes.
Absolutely do. And so it's a place to peer mentor. A lot of my podcast guests like yourself are going to be there. So there's a lot of very, very knowledgeable people there. So guys, if you're interested in this business, you want to make sure you're on that Facebook group. And again, it's multifamilycommunity.com. And if you Google my name or put my name in Facebook, it should pop up as well. But great resource and already a lot of action going on there. And I'm going to be putting a lot of content on there as well. Not a place to promote though, guys, not a
No,
place to
no.
promote your deals. It's not a place to, go in and advertise, a place to educate and learn and grow and all that. But it's an incredible resource. So thank you for reminding me of that because I forgot to mention that. So yeah, social media is awesome. And if you're a multifamily owner, you need to be utilizing it to guerrilla market your units for sure.
You
Absolutely.
know, and along the same lines, Rod, I'm going to mention a little story that I think it's a little bit relevant here. Some people, I guess, depending on your age, would be aware of the Better Business Bureau.
Sure.
And if you know a little bit about its history, it really was a spot that I'll call it previous generations for certain. It was their only resource tool to find out
To evaluate businesses. Sure.
right. So before
Sure.
you could, buy a car or whatever, you'd find out if that car dealer was, had good reviews.
Right.
And so, recently I had been talking to somebody there, and we were talking about the fact that you need to, as a multifamily, think of this as a business and think of this for your reviews. So what you want to do is start to gather those reviews, like right now, like while things are really good and you don't think you need
Positive
those.
reviews.
Yes.
Yes. No, guys, this is called reputation management.
Yep.
I'm so glad you brought this up, Linda, because it's never been brought up on the show before. Guys, one of the first things we do when we evaluate a property is we look at the reviews.
Exactly.
And there's so many sources now online, Yelp and all these other things. And so you want to manage that. It's called reputation management, and being especially if you're buying something bigger than like a fourplex or something, if you're doing 10 units plus, you're going to have a reputation online ultimately. So manage that by proactively getting positive reviews like you're talking about, Linda. So I'm so glad you brought that up. It's very important.
It's very important. And the reality is, and I'm just being realistic here, not negative, but the reality is that this type of business lends itself to negative review.
Yeah, sure.
So
Tenants
if
complaining.
you don't go out and proactively get that guy right when he says, thank you, Rod, this was great, I really appreciate it, and you want to stop in that moment and remember this conversation, Rod, and reputation management.
Yes.
Get that review right then.
The minute they're thrilled that you fixed something, like within an hour of them calling or the same day or whatever, you say, hey, listen, could you do me a favor? Just take 2 seconds and go to Yelp and say great things about me. It'll only take you 2 seconds. And you definitely want to do that. And another thing, if you have a negative review, don't hide, respond. Okay. Give your position. If you screwed up, then yeah, there's a whole strategy to that. And I will tell you, sometimes it is actually best to let it go and let it get buried. But if you really have a position and that's strong, then you respond. If you don't, then it's almost better not to say anything. So there's a whole strategy to it. But the key is, if you're proactive and you get the positive reviews, yes, you're going to get the negative ones. Trust me, it comes with the business. Even the A properties get the negative ones. It's, human error. You mess up and you don't get to them fast enough, or, you can't make everybody happy.
Exactly.
So really important. I'm really glad you brought that up.
I'm going to twist that back to what you say. That's that comfort. How did you put that? You can't get comfortable.
Kills. Yeah,
comfort kills. I forgot that. And I would say, don't just listen to this. Make sure you do it, because the day you get that bad one, you're just going to.
Oh yeah, then you're scrambling and you're trying to you're hoping you can get people to leave good reviews and
you don't want to do it then.
You've got a 1 or a 0 on your rating, and that's no fun. That's not a fun place to be. Been there, done that. It's no fun. So be proactive.
Yep.
Well, Linda, this has been a blast. Really enjoyed everything. You've added a ton of value, and I know your company is My Landlord Helper. Is it mylandlordhelper.com?
That's correct. That's correct. And We'd be happy to help anyone in your audience, Rod, any way we could.
Okay.
We have a service, but if I can be of value, that's, I'm looking to be in the group to add value. Too
Awesome.
many times people make mistakes, and if we can help them avoid that, that's what we'll do.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. You've absolutely added value today, and it was very much a pleasure. And let's stay in touch.
Oh, thank you. And my
All right.
pleasure that you had me. Thank you again.
All right. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Lifetime Cash Flow Through Real Estate Investing podcast. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and then take a moment to visit iTunes and leave a 5-star rating and review. For more resources to connect with us further, please visit our website at lifetimecashflowpodcast.com. Tune in next week for our next show.